Hello, everybody. I am Sapna Mahadevan, and I am back up once again with another exciting and interesting episode of the Fiction Story Writing Masterclass. Right now, in the words of the very famous personality Winston Churchill, success is not final, failure is not at all fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts, right? And that was a powerful one, isn't it? So let's keep going with the courage to continue, even though we see failure sometimes, right? Yes, and with that, let's start the episode of today, the Fiction Story Writing Masterclass, and unleash the writer in you, spark all the creativity that you have got in yourself, and bring in oodles of imagination, right? So that's what is required for today's genre of story writing. And let me also tell you, it is slated to become one of the most popular genres of story, maybe writing or even story reading, right? In the 21st century. So that's the basic idea of the genre that we are going to explore for today, right? And coming up, we have again a gamut of activities, all of them specially planned for all of our wonderful viewers, right? With the objective of giving you a lot of learning and insights, right? So let us look at all of the coming up segments. Of course, we have the essentials and some essential tips. Well, we also are going to have some of the plot building pointers and let you know on some expert tips in that area as well. And apart from that, there are a whole lot of fun activities which again have some or the other learning to be taken back from them, right? So there's a guess the movie and then think like a pro segment. Of course, then we have the Google It segment for today, which will have a lot of words, some maybe new words to you, which I will give you the meanings for. And definitely you can jot all of them down in your Google It journal to have a ready reckoner, right? And then we also have a recommendation of the day. That's a movie for today, right? And there's also the jumbled words segment. And apart from that, a lot of icebreaker questions which are going to keep coming up onto my screen every now and then, right? And you need to be prepared to answer all of those icebreaker questions and be creative while answering them. Yes. So, with that, let's start the episode of today. Yes, with our first icebreaker question. I hope that all of you are ready and really set to go for this episode, right? Pen and paper in hand, right? So, there is the first icebreaker question for all of my little children here, or maybe young children here, right? So the first question that comes up here, noodles or fried rice? That's the first question there. So you need to give me your preference with amongst these two options, right? Noodles or fried rice. What is your choice? Okay. And I can see a lot of hellos there in the chat box, right? And likes coming up there, pouring in here into my chat box. There are a lot of emojis as well. So thanks a lot for dropping in and taking time out to learn. And I think you've already taken the first step if you are willingly joining the live to have that bit of learning and insight. Yes. So that's really commendable, taking time out and joining the live, right? And I get a response there, which is noodles. I can also see fried rice coming up there. I really love fried rice is the response. And thanks a lot for taking time out to type in the answers as well. Great going there. So thanks a lot. I can see mixed bag of responses. We have noodles as well as fried rice, both of them making an entry into my chat box here, right? Great going there. So let's move ahead after that first icebreaker question. We come to the most important question for the day. What's the genre, right? So let me tell you, the broader genre for today is going to be thriller and suspense, since it's a Tuesday, right? And thriller and suspense, we already know it's going to elicit the feeling of thrill, the feeling of anxiety and anticipation. You want to know more and more about the story. You want to keep turning the pages. You're so very absorbed with the story, and then you come to know that that's a thriller and suspense genre, right? So there are elements of uncertainty, anticipation. There's a lot of anxiety, and of course readers do want to keep coming back to turn the pages and to know more about how the story is progressing. So when you're wanting more and when you're guessing that what's going to happen next with a nail biting curiosity, then it's the thriller and suspense genre, right? Now let's move ahead to understand what's the subgenre for the day. Yes. So in thriller and suspense, we have techno-thriller as the subgenre. And what techno-thriller means is that it's going to be a hybrid of action, adventure, sci-fi. There's going to be a lot of thrill. There are going to be some newer, concepts that you can be looking at while you're talking about techno-thriller, right? So this is the subgenre for the day, and this is slated to be one of the most popular genres in the 21st century, right? So techno thrillers, let me tell you, they can be of many types. It could be a military techno thriller, or it could be a crypto techno thriller. So when I say crypto techno thriller, then the majority of the story is going to be based on something which is online, right? So the drama is going to come from all of those online elements, right? And then there could also be a spy techno thriller, and by the name itself you can understand what it suggests, right? Of course, there could also be a sci-fi techno thriller, which will involve a lot of scientific technologies. Yes, and finally, there could also be another genre for techno thriller, which could be a disaster techno thriller. So this would be about disasters that happen all throughout the world, and how do people try to survive this, right? So there could be a different techno thriller genres, but the idea here is that the story is going to be more about technology, right? And the inner workings of technology, maybe that would be discussed a lot in these kind of stories, right? And the thrill comes from all of these aspects, right? So that's the subgenre of the day: techno thriller and suspense. Yes. And now let's move ahead to the first Google it word for today, which is hybrid. So I told you that techno thrillers could be a hybrid of sci-fi, war, adventure, right? So what hybrid means is that it could be a blend of two or more items, right? So when there is a blend that you can see clearly, then it's called a hybrid. So similarly, techno thrillers are a blend between adventure, sci-fi, or whatever the genre, the specific inner workings that you're going to discuss. So it's going to be a hybrid of all of these elements, right? So that means that it's going to be a blend of all of these elements, right? So that's the first Google it word for today, which is hybrid. And you might want to jot down that word in your Google it journal, and do check for the meaning in Google as well. Come up with your interpretation, with the various interpretation that Google can give you, and have an understanding of what hybrid means and how you can be using that in a sentence, right? So that is the first Google it word for today. And let's move ahead to the next icebreaker question. And the question is, what do you prefer? Is it horror movie or is it a comedy movie? Right. So between these two genres, which is it that you would prefer seeing a movie based on, right? So yes, go ahead and type out your answers. I think horror is way too much for me, and I would prefer going with a comedy genre. And what's life without a lot of laughter and fun, right? So yes, comedy is going to be the anytime genre that I will go in for, right? And horror is something that I just run away from. Yes. So that's what was about me. And I can see here in the chat box that you all are really inclined towards horror movies, right? Great. uh, Yes, so I get a lot of horror movies there in the chat box, and I can see that you're inclined towards that one. Right. Okay, so one comedy movie option coming up there in the chat box. Rest all are horror movies, right? So great. Um, Lovely. So then let's move ahead after that icebreaker question. The horror is the clear winner here. And let's move ahead to the next segment, which is about establishing the essentials, right? So let's look at all of the three definite elements that you want to keep in your story. And all of these elements are the first one is going to be the setting. Then we also have the action and then the sci-fi element, right? So let's look at each one of them in greater detail, right? So the first one we have here is the setting. So techno thrillers generally they have a global setting, and it takes place in more than one international destination. That's what we mean when we say it's a global setting, right? So it could be set in different international destinations, and it covers issues which are global in nature. So when I tell you that issues are global in nature, if you talk about disaster techno thrillers, right, then the problem of maybe pollution which is happening world over, right? And otherwise the problem of a wildfire, or even global warming, all of these are issues which are there in a global setting, right? So these are things that you would be writing about while you're writing a disaster techno thriller. So today we are not going into the specifics of what is the techno thriller genre that you're going to write about, because that will then mean that you're digging deeper into even into the subgenre of a techno thriller, right? So we are not going there for today, but the setting is going to be a global setting, and all the issues are going to be global in nature, right? So that's what we need to understand here from the setting of our story. And then the second element that we have here is the action, right? So it's always going to be action packed. Action is one of the themes which is going to be the backbone of our story, and all or I should say most of the story will be based around some kind of action taking place, and that too at a very high voltage, right? So that was the second essential that we saw here, that action is going to be a main part of our theme. And then the third element that we have here is the sci-fi element, right? So techno thrillers are also high on the technical side, and that's why the name suggests techno. Yes, they deal with dangerous technology. That's either the reason for the action. So if it is action that we are talking about, then you can have the martial arts or maybe espionage as one of your themes, right? So the mechanics of various disciplines like martial arts, espionage, all of these are thoroughly explained and explored in these kind of stories, right? And otherwise, technology and the scientific technology particularly, that could also aid at the time of action, right, whenever that action is taking place. Yes, so these are the sci-fi elements that we will be looking into while writing a techno thriller and suspense, right? So these were the three essentials that I dealt with. The first one was the setting, which is a global setting. Then we have action as the backbone of our story, and of course there's also going to be a lot of technology that we are going to deal with while writing stories in the techno thriller and suspense genre, right? Now, with that, let's move ahead to the next Google it word, which is high voltage, right? So, high voltage is generally used for it's a term that is used with relation to electricity, right? But you can also use it creatively, and it would mean that whenever you're wanting to say that it's full of energy, then you can say high voltage, right? So now when I'm saying that the action is high voltage, then it means that the impact of the action is going to be that immense, right? So that's how we are using high voltage here in our slides. And that is again another way, a creative expression of using high voltage in your vocabulary, right? So do Google out this word here and check for the various creative expressions that you can be giving to this word, right? Now, after the second Google it word, we have the next icebreaker question. And the question is Nutella or Hershey's? So that's a difficult option, isn't it? Go ahead and type out one of your answers to this question. And let me see what are the answers that I get. Okay, so both is the answer that I get here, and I quite knew that, right? Um, and I have Harshita tell me difficult choice. Yes, totally. Okay, then I also have Nutella come up there. Nutella as a spread on your bread slices, right? Oh, yes, totally. So, Nutella or Hershey's, I think all of you are indecisive in giving me that answer there, right? Okay, so let's move ahead with that next segment. Um, Yes, and there it comes up. The next segment is expert tips on establishing the essentials. So now that we know what are the three definite elements that we want to keep, we do not want to miss out on all of these elements, then what are the expert tips, right? So the first expert tip that we have here is the one thing that you really need to keep in mind, right? Whatever is the technology that you're going to explore for your story, it should not it should you know be logical. It should not be illogical, right? And it should be very much detailed, so you have to talk about it um, you know in a detailed manner. Give a thorough exploration about it to in the story, and also talk about the science behind it, right? So that's why the name Techno Thriller. And so technology is the main aspect, the driving force in our story, and it needs to be explored thoroughly, right? That's the first expert tip there. And then the second expert tip that we have here, it can be based on spies, on scientists who are illegally working on technologies, or simply a war that's taking place between different countries, right? So again, just like I told you, it could be a military thriller, it could be a spy techno thriller. So there can be different themes that you could be putting into your techno thriller and suspense, and it depends on your imagination and the path that you want to take, right? So that was the second expert tip. And the third expert tip that we have here is that you can even take inspiration from global events that have either already happened or that maybe are happening all around the world, and you can spice it up to write the story, right? And another advantage while you're taking inspiration from some of the global events that have already happened is that your readers already know about it, right? And it's going to be really thrilling for them to read about it in a story format, right? So that's the third expert tip there. In a techno thriller, you can also write about the global events that are happening all around the world, or maybe which has already taken place, right? Now, one of the comments that I get there, Om Priya Roy. Hello there, Om Priya. Thanks for your question, first of all. It may be like anything related to cybersecurity. Yes, of course. It can also be related to cybersecurity. And this kind of a story where cybersecurity is involved, it is generally called crypto techno thriller and suspense, right? So that's based on all of the online, drama that's happening, right? So, yes, Om Priya, you're right there. And just on point. So, as I already told you, it could be a spy thriller, it could be crypto techno thriller, it could be a disaster techno thriller. So, everything depends on what your imagination goes into, right? And when it is crypto techno thriller, then again, it's going to be something which is a new age concept, and your readers are really going to be hooked on to the story, right? Now, moving ahead after that question there to the next icebreaker question, and this is quite easy: fiction or non-fiction? So let me tell you, I always love the fiction stories because they are so very imaginative. There is speculation. There's so much of creativity that we can be putting into it, and there's a lot of freedom for the creative expression, right? So fiction, it is for me. And you can let me know in the chat box what is it that you prefer, right? So I have one of the comments here which says fiction because I love fantasy, right? So all the fairy tales and all the fantasy genres where we have a lot of quirky magic, some imagination, and basically everything happening from the outworldly themes. All of these are fiction stories, right? Because that cannot happen in the real world setting, right? So I have a lot of fiction options coming up here in the chat box. And yes, fiction is totally fun, isn't it? Great. So thanks a lot for all of these answers. And let's move ahead to the next segment. That's the Think Like a Pro segment. It is a favorite segment that you all like to play here. Yes. So it's come up early into our episode for today. And you need to guess these global issues just by looking at the pictures, right? So put on your thinking caps and give me answers to all of these global issues looking at the pictures, right? It's going to be a piece of cake for you, I guess. And there is the first picture. And you just need to think about all of the issues that are happening all the world over, right? And you can get answers for that. True, that's the correct answer. It's a wildfire. Great. So that was the first picture, and you already got the correct answer, a handful of responses in the chat box. Thanks a lot. Varun, Priya, Prisha, and Richa. Thanks a lot for all of these answers. And let's move ahead to the next one. We have the next picture come up there. Okay. So something to do with money, isn't it? Great. Okay, Om Priya giving me another answer there. Forest fire, and that's also I can give that to you. It's a wildfire, or it's also called a forest fire. And what's the next picture? Okay, so I have Varun tell me corruption. Great. And you can also give me specifics, maybe. Um, Greed is another answer that I get there, but unfortunately, okay, one of the elements of corruption. Om Priya tells me inflation. Unfortunately, that's not the right answer. Okay, nice guess though, Om Priya. And corruption is the answer that I get there, which is really close. Okay, so let me give you the correct answer. The answer is government corruption, right? So I have given you more specifics there, right? Okay, now let's move ahead with the third picture. And here we go. Now, yes, that's GDP is another answer that Om Priya Roy gives me. Great, but unfortunately, that was also not the correct answer. And we are moving more towards finance, right, than stories, isn't it, Om Priya? Great. And now we have already moved ahead to the next picture there. And this one's quite simple, isn't it? One side we have a nice clean and green environment. And what's the other side? That is correct again. So, yes, it is climate change. And kudos to all of you for the correct answer. Again, another global issue that we have all taken notice of, right? That is correct. It is climate change. And let me now move ahead to the next picture. And there it is. So, again, another picture there which says it all. And it's not nice at all, right, to be in such a situation. And I get all the correct answers there. Pollution it is. And great. So, yes, pollution it is. And I got all correct answers here. So, again, claps for all of you. And now brace yourselves for the last picture for the day in the Think Like a Pro segment. What can you see there in this picture? There are pollution. That is correct. Another answer that I had there is global warming. But yes, global warming or even climate change. Thanks for all of these answers there, Om Priya. And Om Priya giving me one of the correct answers to this picture. That's again correct. Child labor, right? So, yes, that is the correct answer. That is child labor. And these are some of the global issues that we have started to take notice of. Yes, and it could really form a part of our story as well, right? So you can of course take inspiration from all of these global issues. Yes, now back to back we have another fun segment, and this is the movie title trivia. So you need to guess the name of the movies, and these are all, let me tell you, in the techno thriller and suspense genres, right? So give me the name of the movie title. That's the first picture that I have there. And I get the correct answer. That is right. It is Matrix, right? Now let's move ahead to the next movie, the famous Hollywood movie. And children particularly love this one, about dinosaurs, right? Tyrannosaurus, and so many different names of the dinosaurs, isn't it? My children keep telling me so many facts about the dinosaurs, and it's really amazing how much you can learn even from a movie, right? Yes. Okay, and I get all correct responses there. Very good. Om Priya, Varun, Richa, all of you giving me correct answers, and that, of course, is Jurassic Park. Okay, now let's move ahead with the next picture. And there it is, a Bollywood movie with the techno thriller genre. And what's the name of the movie? The name of that movie is War. Let me give that to you. And then we also have a last movie title coming up here. And can you guess the name of this one? It's the last in our movie title trivia segment, right? Okay, so I'm going to reveal the answer. Um, okay, so one of the answers coming up for the previous question. Om Priya giving me war, and that is correct. And the name of this movie, let me reveal that out to you. It is Atomic Blonde. Right now, with that, we come to the end of the movie title trivia, and let's move ahead to the next segment, which is plotting the plot. Right. So, again, I'm going to give you three important elements in writing an absorbing techno thriller and suspense story. And all of these three elements right there on my screen. The first one is about the protagonist. Then we also have the opposition and the thrilling journey, right? So the protagonist, what do we talk about the protagonist in our story, right? They have to be strong, they have to leave an impact on the readers, and of course, for leaving an impact on to the readers' minds, the protagonist has to be a dynamic personality, very determined in their conquest, right? And that's how we are going to portray our protagonist of our story, right? There's going to be a lot of thrill in our story, and the protagonist is going to stand the test of time, right? Now, the next element that we have here is the opposition. So there is going to be some opposition from dangerous technology, or maybe there is going to be war or some kind of a disbalance there, right? So make the opposition ruthless and provide enough information about it to the readers, right? So whatever is the opposition that your protagonist is facing, or the hurdles that your protagonist is facing, may it be technology, may it be war, you need to talk all about it and give a lot of details about that opposition to your reader, so that they have a clear understanding, right? So this was the second element of plotting the plot. And then we also have the third element, which is the thrilling journey, right? So that's what our story is all about. It is about the thrill ride, yes. And the journey is going to be filled with how the protagonist is fighting the opposition, and there are going to be a lot of twists and turns, yes. So keep the readers onto the edge of their seats. You can do that even with the pace of your story, right? And the face off should be nerve wracking, right? And the journey should also be filled with shocking revelations. There can be a lot of revelations that come across into the story every now and then, which is really shocking for your readers, right? And that's how they are going to be always on the edge of their seats, right? So talk about the thrilling journey and the nerve-wracking plot. Yes, this will, of course, keep the story absorbed and hooked and engaged. Yes. Now, moving ahead to the next segment, we have a Google it word, and the word for today is nerve wracking. So what do we mean when we say it has to be nerve wracking, right? So the word here, or the phrase here, it means that it needs to cause a lot of anxiety and stress. Yes. So that's how thrilling your story needs to be, right? So do Google up the word or the phrase nerve wracking, and try using all of these phrases in your vocabulary, right? Even while you're writing, wherever there is a creative expression that you're doing for your schoolwork, even then you can remember all of these phrases and use them in your compositions, in your comprehensions, right? And it's really going to make that impact, right? And that impression. Yes. So nerve wracking is the new word that you have learned for today. And the word or the phrase, it means something that causes a lot of anxiety, right? Now, after this Google it word, let's move ahead to the expert tips in plotting the plot. And the first expert tip that we have here is that while writing techno thrillers, there's a requirement of a lot of research that you need to do, and you need to be aware of politics or science and even technology, because that's what you're going to be writing about, right? So do thorough research on all of the topics that you're going to mention in your story, and come across as a creative writer who is aware of what they are writing. Yes, so that's the first expert tip in plotting the plot. And the second expert tip that we have here is that the events that are going to happen in the story, they are all going to be destructive in nature. Yes, not only in terms of the fight, but even for the general public, maybe disasters. But if you're talking about crypto techno thrillers, then it's going to be about cyber security, and how there is a lot of danger in that area, right? And disasters could also come from the various scientific advancements that have happened, right? The even from the disasters in machinery, or even robotic disasters, right? So there are a lot of angles that you can be exploring, but you just need to keep in mind that the story should be or the plot that you're going to describe in the story should be destructive in nature, right? So now after that expert tip, let's quickly move over to the next expert tip, and that's about the ending of the story, right? And generally in these type of stories, the ending is satisfactory because we have a dynamic protagonist, someone who is determined towards the cause, and yet the damage that has already happened is something which is saddening, right? But you can showcase the ending as satisfactory, and you can tweak it according to how you wish to um, explore your story, right? But the damage has already happened, but still the protagonist is a well determined and dynamic personality, so you can keep the ending as satisfactory, right? So they have survived whatever that situation was, right? So that was the third expert tip that we see here. And then after all of these expert tips, I'm sure that you have got a lot of angles to be exploring for this techno thriller and suspense genre, and it's going to be a thrill ride for you even while you try writing a story all by yourself. Yes. So then let's move ahead to the next segment, and it is another Google it word, which is tweak, right? So tweaking would mean changing or adjusting something according to your needs, right? So that's the meaning of tweak, making adjustments to something, right? And again, do jot down that word in your Google it journal. Yes. So after that, let me move ahead to another fun segment, which is the recommendation of the day. And that is a movie for today. The name of the movie is Eagle Eye. And the gist of this movie is that there are two people who get a mysterious call from a woman, and that's an unknown woman, right? And the woman controls all of their moves and asks them to carry out a dangerous mission which is planned by a terrorist outfit. So then what happens? How do they follow all the rules? Do they try following all the moves that the lady tells them to? And what's the stake behind all of this is what this movie is all about, right? So again, a very thrilling movie there, right? And that's the recommendation of the day for all of my dear viewers, right? So the name of the movie again, Eagle Eye, right? Now let's move ahead with the next segment, and we have another fun segment here, which is the jumbled words segment, right? So let me tell you that here I'm going to showcase some words, and all of them are jumbled up. Now you need to unjumble them and give me the correct word in the chat box, right? That's so simple, isn't it? So let's go ahead with the first word, and here it is. Let me give you a clue. It is the main theme of today's genre, right? So, what is a techno thriller and suspense have as the main theme? That's what you need to think about. And when you unjumble this word, then you get the correct word, and that is right. So, I have a lot of answers here in the chat box, and kudos to all of you. That is the correct answer. It is thriller, right? Yes, the main theme that we are talking about for today, right? Okay, so great going there. Thriller it is. Om Priya, Varun, Preeti, all of you giving me correct answers. That is thriller. And now going ahead with the second question. And here is the word that I have. And Hadi Bandhu. Hadi Bandhu, I think that's the correct way of pronouncing that name. I'm sorry if I'm not doing it right. Thanks for the like there. Thanks for all the love and the reaction to our video here. Great. So yes, again, correct answers. The correct word is technical. Right. So let's move ahead with the next one. Here it is. So can you unjumble this word and give me the correct answer? Yes, again, that is correct. It is action. Om Priya giving me the answer to the previous one, and that is correct again. Technical. And here we have action, that is correct. And the last one in today's jumbled word segment. Okay, let me tell you that again, it's a subgenre that you can say for this particular segment. Action it is. Om Priya, I'm getting late responses, I think. And this is sci-fi. That is correct again. So yes, sci-fi it is. Okay, so with that, we come to the end of this segment here, and actually to the end of our episode for today, right? So there have been so many learnings from today's episode in writing Techno-Thriller, right? But let me, before leaving, give you a quick roundup of all the learnings that we have done today. So, at a glance is the name of this segment. And first things first is all about the essentials. So, we have a global setting, we have action as one of the themes, and yes, so I just have another comment coming up here. Raja Boina Rachna, actually Rachna, giving me Sci-Fi as the answer to that previous question, and that is correct, Rachna. Great. So thanks a lot there, and Om Priya Roy giving me a reaction to the video. Thanks a lot for all of those love emojis and all the likes there. I'm really glad that you're getting a lot of learnings from these episodes, right? So a quick roundup. The essentials are going to be a global setting. There's going to be a lot of high voltage action, and there's of course going to be the sci-fi element as well, right? Now, moving ahead to the plot building pointers, we have determined and dynamic personality in the protagonist. There's going to be opposition. There are going to be some hurdles that the protagonist is going to try to cross, right? It could be in the form of a war, maybe, or any form of hurdle that comes in his way. Yes. And of course, we are also going to talk about the thrilling journey, right? So, the thrill ride and the adventure that we embark upon, that the protagonist embarks upon, and what is it that he or she is trying to survive from, the global issue. All of that is going to be something that we are going to talk about in our story and keep our readers onto the edge of their seats. Yes. So after that plot building point, after those plot building pointers, let's quickly move ahead to the project work. And this is something that I urge all of my dear viewers to be doing in every episode, right? So put pen to paper, and believe me, it's just the first step that matters, right? And that beautiful first step that you take, and that determined step that you take, is going to make sure that you end the journey beautifully as well, right? So implement all of those learnings that you have had from today's lesson and draft your first story around the techno thriller and suspense genre, right? Now, for tomorrow, we again have another interesting genre for all of you to explore, and that is going to be sci-fi or science fiction. Yes, so again, in science fiction, we are going to have a different subgenre for the day, right? And I'll be giving you interesting details in tomorrow's episode as well. So do stay tuned in with me at 6 p.m. India time tomorrow as well. And until the time we meet next, I want all of you to take good care of yourselves and your family members, right? And stay happy and keep smiling, right? I'm Sapna Mahadevan signing out for today. Bye bye.